Beirut, Lebanon awoke to scenes of utter devastation this morning after two colossal explosions devastated parts of this country's capital. They happened at a warehouse where nearly 3,000 tons of highly explosive ammonium nitrate were being stored, apparently without any safety measures. At least 100 people were killed, some 4,000 injured, that according to the Red Cross. We're getting these live images right now from Beirut, where smoke continues to billow over the blast site. The explosions shattered windows as far as 20 kilometers away. Rescue workers are continuing to look for survivors beneath the rubble there. It is unclear how many people are missing at this hour.
A devastating blast, followed by billows of smoke, visible from all across the city. The massive explosion rocked Beirut on Tuesday evening, flattening the city's port area, with buildings destroyed and people trapped under the rubble. Ambulances raced to and from the area, transporting the injured to hospitals. We were at home. We heard what sounded like fireworks. We thought it was a container in the port that was on fire and they weren't able to put it out. A few seconds later, we were flying through the air. We heard the first explosion. We went to see what happened. I didn't have time. I didn't realize there would be a second explosion. The glass exploded in front of me. The blast destroyed buildings not only at the port where it originated, but across much of Beirut, even kilometers away from the epicenter. Shop windows were smashed, walls and doors of people's homes knocked down. The Prime Minister said those responsible will be brought to justice. It will not pass without accountability. Those responsible for this catastrophe will pay the price. This is a promise to the martyrs and the injured. This is a national commitment. The blast hit a country already struggling with the coronavirus pandemic and a deep economic crisis. Hospitals, already burdened with COVID-19 patients, are overwhelmed. Countries, including longtime rival Israel, have offered humanitarian aid to Lebanon. Support is sorely needed to help the country deal with this enormous catastrophe.
We're joined now by our correspondent, Razan Salman, in Beirut. A very difficult morning where you are, Razan. Can you describe for us your experience of what happened last night?
Indeed, Brian, this was really a catastrophe. When the explosion took place, I was at my own house. My house is like at least 10 kilometers away from the location of the explosion. All the glass in all the fronts in my house were all exploded. I have no fronts in my house anymore. I thought the explosion was right under my building. And then when I went to the location of the explosion, when I was on the way, I saw the ambulances. They were picking casualties from areas that are very far from the location of the explosion. The smoke was all around Beirut. You could see the smoke from any area you are in Beirut. There was a total state of chaos and panic. People were panicking. At first, nobody knew what happened. And then when the news started coming, people understood. But it was because their homes were already destroyed, even if they were very far from the place of the explosion. The glass was covering most of Beirut streets. The storefronts in all of downtown Beirut are all now on the streets. And this comes at a very hard time for Lebanon, where Lebanon is already suffering from a very difficult economic crisis. And also, when I was on the way, people were asking if they could put casualties in my own car, but luckily there were many ambulances that were already picking people. And this morning, hospitals are packed. There are at least 78 dead or 100 dead, according to the Red Cross, and at least 4,000 injured people. So there is no more space in the hospital to welcome the people who are injured. And yeah.
Razan, a very difficult situation you're describing there. We've been seeing scenes of mountains of rubble around the blast site and farther away as well. Is there any idea how many people are trapped right now beneath the rubble that need help, that need rescuers to get to them?
We have no idea how many people need help under the rubble. The rescuers are still digging under the rubble, and there are helicopters that are searching for people who were thrown away to the sea because of the massive blast, the massive explosion. So rescuers are still working. They're still looking for people. I am in an area that is very near to one of the most renowned hospitals in Beirut. The ambulances were coming in and out. And there was a total state of panic and chaos till now, because we cannot even they cannot even count the number of injured, or there are also people who are still lost, and nobody knows what happened to them. They are still looking for people who are lost.
Does Beirut, does Lebanon have the capacity to get to all of these people and to treat them medically?
Lebanon, after all the coronavirus outbreak, and Lebanon was already in state of panic because of this pandemic, and then the explosion came out. It came out at a very bad time. So rescuers and the hospitals, they announced, the Minister of Health, he announced that the hospitals have no more capacity to welcome the patients, the injured people, and they are treating the injured people in the corridors of the hospitals, since rooms are already packed.
Razan, we have
outside Beirut.
Time for one more question, Razan. Why was this ammonium nitrate stored so close to the city center, so much of it, 3,000 tons, right there in the port area? And who was responsible for that? Do you have any idea?
There is the Prime Minister, when in his statement he said he will not preempt any assumption, because and they will investigate to see who is responsible for this. The tons, the almost 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate were there since 2014, and they were stored without measures, according to the president of Lebanon, Michel Aoun. In a statement he said yesterday during the meeting of the High Council of Defense.
Razan Salman in Beirut. We'll have much more from the Lebanese capital as the day progresses, of course. Thanks so very much for now, Razan, and all the best to you there in Beirut. Let's get more now with Joachim Paul. He heads the Beirut branch of the Heinrich Böll Foundation. That is a German think tank. Thanks so much for joining us today. A very difficult time. Are you, your colleagues, their families okay?
Yes, thank you. A very difficult time indeed, but we're okay. Our department and office is destroyed, but we are okay. Who is not okay are all those people out there who suffered injuries, those thousands, and the Lebanese people who had to endure for months and months such a hardship and crisis.
From the COVID pandemic you're referring to there, I imagine. Joachim, these explosions come as Beirut, Lebanon, is in the midst of a social and political crisis, a number of crises. What needs to happen right now to get the country and its people through this shock?
Yes, Lebanon is in not one crisis. It's in the midst of multiple crises. You mentioned the Corona crisis. Corona came after millions of Lebanese protested against their government, not only the government, against the complete political system, which is totally corrupt and which is not ready to start any reform and to open up the system, which is exactly the problem. Then the financial crisis hit. 50% of assets the country were destroyed. A massive amount of people were pushed under the poverty line. Then came Corona, several month long lockdown. Now a surge in numbers of Corona infection, and then this incredible. Sorry, yes, please.
If the current elite, the business and political elite, is incapable of dealing with the corona crisis and now this crisis. Who can help the country move forward?
The demands of the democracy movement were from the start, from the 17th of October, for the government to step down and to allow a government of experts, of independents who do not belong or do not represent the traditional political elite or political parties, to take over with a limited mandate, the mandate to steer the country through the economic crisis. And this did not happen. The now government negotiated with the International Monetary Fund and other international donors, knowing that international aid and international financial support is the only way out of the acute, massive crisis the country is in. Nothing happened.
Yeah, it is an acute crisis. And right now there's a new one. We're looking at the port. Lebanon's imports. Millions of Lebanese depend on food, for example, passing through that port. Do we still have the connection? It looks like. We're going to wait for a second.
Hello?
Okay, we have the connection back. Yes, we can hear you again. Thanks so much, Joachim. I'm going to restate the question. This port is essential to get goods to the people, not only of the capital, but the rest of Lebanon. What needs to happen right now for the port itself so that it can get up and functioning, so that supplies can get to the people of Lebanon?
Exactly. There need to be immediate, probably humanitarian operations to get the port running again. We should not forget the country depends to 85% of all the goods, whatever it is being consumed, including food supplies, medicine, etc., 85% imports. Now, the country didn't have the money to import. There's already a severe nutrition crisis. And this is, I would say, this and medical supplies, the most urgent to come in. But including other things, all windows in Beirut are scattered and destroyed. There is not one factory that produces glass in the country, for example. All of this need to be channeled through the now destroyed port.
Okay,
a huge task.
A huge task for the nation to rebuild, certainly after this. I'm sure the focus is right now on rescuing people beneath the rubble. We're going to have to leave it there. Joachim Paul from the Heinrich Böll Foundation, thank you so very much, and all the best to you in Beirut.